Yes.
Welcome to The Know, as featured on CBS. Yeah, we did it in the Super Bowl. I'm Ashley Jenkins.
I'm Turney.
If you've been thinking about a challenging, content-rich, thoughtful, and nuanced game on your iPhone or iPad, good news, everyone. You can remove one of the options from your list.
The Binding of Isaac Rebirth's iOS version has been rejected by Apple for depictions of child abuse, giving us another eye roller in a long list of bizarre choices they've made in regulating their monstrous app store.
This news comes courtesy of a tweet from Tyrone Rodriguez, the founder of Nicholas, who is working on the port of The Binding of Isaac, along with creator Edmund McMillan. That tweet is pretty straightforward, containing an image of the rejection from Apple and the words, "Come on, WTF, Apple. Seriously, WTF."
Yeah, short and sweet. The game's full rejection notice from Apple states that it contains content or features that depict violence towards or abuse of children. When reached for comment about the rejection, the understandably irritated McMillan told VentureBeat that Apple doesn't think games are art or have any respect for the medium. They basically just told every game developer out there that video games are kids' toys with no artistic merit.
Wow, going harsh. Inspired by the biblical story of Abraham binding his son, Isaac, hence the title, after being told by God to sacrifice him, only in this instance it's Isaac's modern-day mother who gets her directive, the game is, of course, already familiar with its share of controversy.
Back in 2012, Nintendo banned the game from release on 3DS due to its religious themes. Now, at the time, it was Nintendo's policy not to touch religion with a 10-foot pole, which is weird, because doesn't every JRPG ever have God as the main boss or something like that?
With 3 forms at least.
Come on, God's got a couple.
Fortunately, Nintendo eventually reversed its decision a couple of years later, thanks to the hard work of former head indie game development for Nintendo, Dan Edelman, who later got fired for speaking out against the company's restrictive content policies too much. I think he now is an indie game developer.
Yeah.
He worked on Axiom Verge.
Hey, you think we're too restrictive? You fired. That'll show him. A critique and reflection on creator McMillan's experiences with religion, mixed with a tribute to roguelikes and the original Legend of Zelda, and of course, poop.
What a weird combination.
Why not? McMillan thought it was career suicide when he first started working on it. However, the game has gone on to sell more than 4 million copies on Steam.
Well, there you go. You get the platform that doesn't go just strangling to creativity, and you sell 4 million copies. Come on. With releases on that platform as well as 3DS, will we ever see it on the App Store, or you think it's down for the count?
This is by no means the first game that's had trouble with the Apple platform. A little over a year ago, Papers, Please, the best game ever, was rejected by Apple because of the body scanning sections, which Apple deemed pornographic. Have they even seen it? It looks so ridiculous.
I feel like Gus wants to drop an elbow on Apple just for that.
The people's elbow.
The Papers elbow.
Yeah.
You can actually find less porn in Playboy's new format, which has gone as never nudist to bias funky. But that's really besides the point, isn't it? Papers, Please creator Lucas Pope went on to create a non-nude version for the App Store release, but turned out he didn't have to because it was all just a big misunderstanding. I cannot talk today. Glory to our Stutska's pixelated nether parts.
Indeed. That's not Apple's only misstep, though. Last year, the company rushed to join the club of institutions removing Confederate flags when it pulled Civil War strategy games following the tragic church shooting in Charleston, South Carolina, despite the fact that there were still plenty of Civil War documentaries on iTunes.
Yeah. Apple's also been known to remove content that's indirectly critical of the company, such as Phone Story. Again, this satirically pokes fun at the troubled life of a smartphone, and the slightly more serious In a Permanent Save State, a game about the afterlives of overworked assembly line Foxconn employees who committed suicide.
Good God.
Yikes, that one's a little bit dark.
Holy hell. In the wake of the Binding of Isaac's rejection from the App Store, gamers are, of course, calling to attention a number of other titles that commit the offense of depicting violence against children that have managed to secure a release on the notorious platform.
Telltale's Walking Dead games, for one, are full of numbers of instances that depict child characters as the victims of violent zombie attacks. Too many child zombie attacks, not enough Kenny zombie attacks.
Hey, I sided with Kenny my whole story.
Nope, there's also Limbo, which is practically a child-killing simulator if you're terrible at platforming and puzzle games like I am.
But you have to be to play that game.
Oh man, you gotta be a masochist.
God, the spider comes and it's just, that leg.
The spider's the worst.
There's also GTA, which doesn't include violence towards children, but does include it at just about everybody else on the planet.
Don't be ageist, Apple.
Plus a number of children's Bible stories, which depict numerous disturbing and violent stories, like the one in Binding of Isaac. Ooh.
Weird. That's ignoring the millions of clones of popular games and outright scams that Apple approves all the time. Minecraft 2, anyone?
Yeah, when you take a look at this information and take it all into account, Apple's approach to game content moderation seems ham-fisted really at best, which I would really call it schizophrenic at worst, which is really a problem considering that Apple's App Store holds the keys to half of mobile's gaming's $30 billion in annual revenue.
So why does Apple keep running into problems like this with Binding of Isaac and other games? And why does it seem like it's always games?
In many ways, the App Store is really just too big, figurative and literally, for Apple to change anything about how it handles the game review process. For a while, developers have complained that if you don't like how your game was reviewed, just submit it again and hope that a different reviewer gets his hands on it.
Wow, that seems like a great solution. Come on. By and large, the App Store simply makes too much money for Apple, who's clearly taken an if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach to how it approves content for the store overall. It's too unwieldy and inundated with content to police in any meaningful way.
But it actually runs a little deeper than all of that when you consider how many pieces of content, both in books and in film, that Apple keeps on iTunes digital shelves that depict violence toward children.
And maybe civil wars?
Yep, it starts to seem like there's a bit of double standard here when it comes to gaming.
And this happens to be something video games constantly struggle against: artistic justification. Games are very rarely given the same treatment when it comes to artistic justification compared to troubling images and content in other mediums.
Apple's guidelines for app development basically state this double standard outright, saying we view apps different than books or songs, which we do not curate. If you want to criticize a religion, write a book. If you want to describe sex, write a book or a song or create a medical app. It can get complicated, but we have decided not to allow certain kinds of content in the App Store.
That sounds really high-handed, like they think they're doing a good thing, but it just comes across as kind of out of touch.
If you want to talk about sex, write a book. Fuck you! Approve my app.
This is, of course, despite the Supreme Court ruling back in 2011, the video games are art just like any other medium and are subject to First Amendment protection. So apparently Apple hasn't caught up with the US government on whether or not video games are art and what types of content should and shouldn't be in video games.
So exactly how do you get to be slower than the government?
How is that possible? The government is supposed to be the slowest, most out-of-touch thing there is.
They really are. Really, in 2016, you'd think we'd be long past the whole tired-ass argument about whether or not video games are art and should contain expressions as such.
Apparently not for Apple.
Yeah, it's really a moot debate, one that even mainstream media has really grown tired of and moved away from.
Everyone loves video games these days. In the end, we expect that Apple will ultimately probably approve Binding of Isaac for release on the App Store, although there is a chance it might have to undergo some content edits. Unfortunately, until Apple changes its views about both games, its definition of art, and its service in general, we'll probably keep seeing more and more instances just like this.
What do you guys think of Apple's content regulations in the App Store? I mean, do you expect to see the Binding of Isaac make its way in, or do you think it's out for good?
For more news on ridiculous App Store rejections and never nude behavior, like this video and subscribe to The Know. I make it sound like never nude is sexy. It's not. Never nude is the unsexiest. Although, gotta say, Tobias in some denim shorts.
Yeah, when you have something a little bit covered, I think it's better than just being like, labe.
I will say that, I think that like images are sexier in lingerie than nude.
Yeah.
I like having just like a little bit of secret.
Yeah, just a little bit of, I wonder what that
my
nipple looks
imagination.
like.